preview of the Mighty Vehicle Generator, starting with the wheels. The small tractor tire. The idea to generate this is out of these three curves that are in 1, 2, and 3 curves, kind of like a collection, but they're inside one mesh, just to keep it kind of more simple, so you don't have to make a collection for each and every tire. It's simply those three curves in that one geometry that is used to generate this whole thing. One of them is the shape of the lug, one of them is the shape of the inside kind of path, and the last one is the kind of height, long distance for that guy. So various stuff can be then done so that the scaling of the rim can be different and the shape can be slightly different, and the rest is done with geometry nodes, obviously. And there's geometry nodes. Here I call it the big wheel generator, and it has these parameters to control how I can make like a whole new tire there and start playing with this, and like everything like is dynamic and is driven by these three. So if I now change this, I can hide the other curves and focus now on this, which is the height, long distance. So it's the height kind of along how far each one of these goes. So if I want this to be flat, I could just turn this into like vectors and throw that down the 0 and y, and then throw it again, like so. It's a flat line now. So now they go flat. And if I want it to go the other way around, just raise this end and so on. That would need a higher lug. The lugs are generated kind of previously. I have this lug generator, show it with the 5 lug. So isolate only these two. So there's this geometry nodes that in this case will generate this 5 lug collider, and then here's the 5 lug object, and it's set to use a boolean then with that collider object. And after that it uses the exact same function that is used to kind of create the lug to then generate the screws in there. Now it's set to scale 0 though. I just have to scale it up from here. So the same function generates the collider, which then, this is actually just a cylinder. And then the script, what it does is that actually adds to what is already there. And so I can kind of build these with this same function. It's just a simple function to then generate the lug. And I made these 3 different lugs here. So there's the 8 lug, there's the 5 lug, and then there's the 4 lug for different cases. and that's just a piece that gets added then to use one of these tires at the center, and it has to be kind of chosen here. I could change this into a 5-lug and so on. And that's how the wheels are generated. To get started, and then I have this kind of vehicle generator starting with, can start with the sports car. It's got a bunch of collections. The most important one is this kind of hull mesh, and it's just a simple, very simple kind of mesh. I isolate this one too to see that it's a simple mesh that then has a set of materials, and depending on what material each phase has, certain stuff will happen. And like separating the doors with the door material will create edges, and then separating the light materials, it will actually use this in another object here, the boolean. There's this cutter object that gets generated automatically then. It generates colliders. Now if I'll just zoom in on this. So here's the object, and you can see it's kind of penetrating the other mesh. And this actually gets kind of separated in the geometry nodes and turned into a boolean then that is used. So that in the final output it gets kind of smoothly booleaned, and it creates the mesh behind it. It creates this kind of glass mesh, and then it's used for other stuff like this door. Well, the geometry nodes are used for these edges, so ones that have different materials can easily be detected, and then along the borders of those you can generate other mesh, for example. And this grill grill shape is kind of the it's kind of, you need to split stuff into a bunch of objects to make it work fast. All these booleans and stuff work much faster if they're not inside the actual nodes. So this way I can do everything kind of real time, and use geometry nodes to just implement stuff that doesn't already exist in these kind of what do you call these? These guys. And now the grill, it actually has the source here in a grill shape. I can isolate this. So this is now in its simplest form. So it's just a path. So it's kind of much easier to edit it. And it then converts this into a mesh, which is then you have to use it through here in the grill generator. So the objects create then the colliders for the boolean operation later, which will then kind of automatically then cut this grill hole into this source mesh. And you can see the guy here. It's gonna look like this once it's cut. So the tires generate their own cutters, the lights generate their own cutters, even the handles generate their own cutters. And this is simply done by going through the objects collection and everything that has these certain materials, like for the backlights and for the exhaust, is a cutter for all of them. It will then generate automatically a cutter object which then will be here in the output done with a boolean, then combined with the other stuff to get the final output, which looks then like this, like the quill gets generated with another node group and so on. And this can be then used, it also generates the cockpit kind of automatically. You just have to have a front window, and based on the front window it can detect that okay, there's a window facing the positive, the negative Y in this kind of setup, and from the bottom of that mesh it can start the dashboard object, and behind that it will fit the seats and so on. All these get generated kind of automatically based on the front window, and then this other data, which is the cockpit box, which is then kind of just a box that I can draw to define where I want to see, because like I really don't need stuff in front of this or behind this for the cockpit, and it will make a boolean operation, so it will kind of enclose and make it like a watertight sealed cockpit with another boolean operation. And all this material here inside, it has it like, just show just the cockpit, so it will kind of with a boolean operation, it will separate stuff from the hull mesh, and then take the windows out after the boolean operation. Since the boolean operation, it needs it to be like a complete hull. After that, those windows can be removed to make it look like it has a perfect inside, and it works every time for each and every different kind of. I can go here now, the minibus output. It has the same idea here, it just has more seats. The final output of these are just, again, it's just doing bunch of hierarchy here, just what I've been learning here about Blender, and it's the same stuff in like all, if you're using Unity or Unreal or whatever, you have to have a hierarchy of objects. You don't want to try to work in just geonodes. You have to learn how to work with a lot of collections and a lot of objects. This is just again a link. It's just a simple geonode which links a collection, which is then the output. So I can put all of the outputs. And what's kind of cool about this, since in Blender I can share this data. So if I look at this guy's data, this is actually the shared data of the stuff that generates the whole thing. So if I make any changes to this, that is the final output of stuff, it actually affects the source copy of it, and yada yada yada, so on. So I can actually edit all of these vehicles now from this one collection, which is pretty amazing. And though it's not like exactly real time, it's way better than just like some setup with only the geonodes, which would be kind of slow with the booleans, and just one boolean can make it really slow. Now that did a bunch of booleans and all that in less than a second, so it's way faster with these collections and so on. Anyway, so my idea is here now. I haven't installed the new wheels, I just finished the new wheel generator. Now the next to make a tractor, this is just kind of for fun. Here this crazy train to make a tractor, and that's output here. And it seems like all these guys, they're sharing the same hull mesh, so it doesn't really matter from this is this simple of a mesh that thing can be there's the path for the exhaust, like all these colliders and all this stuff. It happens really simply. Just go front view now, rotate this like 90 for example, and then bring it off the side like that a bit. Like all that operation kind of happens with it. And now those lights are generated in another way. And here the cockpit has the same thing. It's just automatically generated from the bottom of the front window, and then the seats come behind that. Now I had to go through some changes here, get the wheels kind of almost done. There's one more issue when I get these kind of cutters to go kind of along this. But now the setup for the wheels is kind of complete, and the kind of needed setup to get this kind of wheel wear. I'll add an edge split here. I'm gonna see what it's gonna look like in the end. So this needs actually the tire, which is generated with the geometry nodes, and then there needs to be an object that kind of links that object, and then does a boolean with another linked object, which is then needs to be the cutter. So there needs to be the bike front tire cutter first of all, which is this one, and this only does the lugs. There's no options to do the tire and do the lugs, so this does only the lugs part, and it has this shape in there, and changing this shape will obviously affect then these lugs, which then needs to be linked again, because you can only do boolean operations with meshes, and these need to be curves, so this data can be generated. So this kind of weird setup that then link the cutter into a mesh. So now the cutter is a mesh. Let's look at this. This is just a link of that object, but now it's a mesh, and it's a whole different show with meshes. Now actually the boolean can be added and used, And so now this is the same idea. This is a link, and so this is a mesh too, so the boolean can be used. And now so this front tire will do a boolean with this linked. So it's a mesh and a mesh, where these meshes kind of link this data which is actually in curves. So that's why this setup only needed if the logs really need to kind of cut into it. The other tires can be done with just this one object and one data, and will eventually look good when it gets the edge split. You don't want to actually have the edge split at this point because it'll mess up kind of the generation if it's done too early. Probably not for the wheels though, but stuff that cutters and stuff need to be whole, and if you do an edge split too early it will kind of mess that up. Anyway, that's the new setup for the wheels, so that every wheel can be done, and kind of go here, and so this is the whole set of wheels. Now there's a tractor tire, it could be made a little better, and then there's a couple of values. If I add this margin, for example, it will move them from the side. Probably want slightly less logs, in fact, to count this too much, maybe like 20, and wider ones. Maybe go with that's too much. Go to still maybe less logs. 12 logs is enough. So now it looks more like a tractor tire, and my idea is now to do a new vehicle kind of from the start. If I can pull this off, and each vehicle now needs this whole collection of actually collections, so it's a lot of different meshes and objects, and then the output to get stuff done. And now to start with a new vehicle, I'll make a new save, like this would be not the 97th kind of step of this file, and now I need to duplicate this collection, so I get like a new, I can just hide that guy, and I'll rename this to tractor. And now, since this naming convention is pretty nice, Blender does it automatically. It gives like new names for everything, and all the links kind of remained here, so I can hide first of all this. I don't need that now for the cockpit. Probably won't need the cockpit at all for the tractor type vehicles anyway. Now this is the one containing the data actually. Now if I start editing this, I will start making a whole new hull. I can just delete all of this. I'll put a whole new, I'll just start with a cube. Like this will be my whole new vehicle. Now I can just do whatever. Maybe get started with something like that for a tractor. I think it kind of wants to be kind of narrow, so that it fits inside those wheels. is now the geometry node is actually, before coming to the, I'll just isolate this part now, we'll do a subdivision on it. So to get more control of how it will do this thing, I can just add these kind of little cuts. So I'll just use the Control R, and then the mouse will get like 2 cuts, and then scale it so I get this kind of building effect along here, along the center. Actually here I'll just want 1 cut on the center because I can get rid of the whole other side after that. So what I can do now is just do that again. How did I now get it? It stays put. Okay, now I can just move this to 0. Then I can go top view. All the points, and just select all the points on the other side. I can actually turn these off so I don't see them. So there's a mirror that gets applied, and then the geometry nodes, which does the subdivision. So this is basically all the data needed for the most simple kind of vehicle. And then you can just start redefining this more. To get the needed kind of building happening here. So now it's already starting to take the shape of a tractor, where now all I need to do is to add some window here. Only make one first that uses the cockpit and everything. So my idea would be probably something like scaling now this on the Y. First of all, use the O key to go back and forth with this guy. Use the connected geometry stuff. So it's basically kind of like sculpting instead of just editing data. Now if I scale stuff, I get this like, I can use the mouse wheel to get this, how far it affects it. And then if I click here on the key for the y-axis, so I'm only affecting the y-axis, I can kind of pinch it to a more shape that is more suitable. And now if I now just change this material to window, assign it to window, and perhaps want to cut it a little better. I'll put that guy and that guy, that guy and that guy as windows as well. So now when it gets generated in the output, just select the output now, those things actually get turned into windows. This shape. So to define the cockpit, now that this guy, don't worry about the lock just yet. There's the cockpit bounce object. And now I just want to move this where I want that cockpit to kind of be. And what it does, it automatically cuts the bottom based on the front window there. So that's why the front window had to be done first. So the floor will be relative to the front window. So wherever the front window's bottom is, the floor is relative to that, and the seats will get generated. The cockpit, everything will be generated based on this line here. This is kind of what drives everything. The window that is facing that way and the bottom of that defines the floor level, and it also defines where the dashboard will start. So everything can be kind of automatically generated. And then the other thing that matters is how far this will generate, kind of like a sealed box. So everything inside here and the cutters will cut through this. Then if I'll now generate a grill here, the cutter will cut through the cockpit and it will actually cut through both of these objects. See the cutters a bit later. Anyway, this defines now the area where the cockpit will get generated. And if I go to the output, now if I look at just the cockpit object, I can see that it already kind of did all that for me. The seats are there where they're supposed to be, and it's all driven. It's even got that mirror there. The mirror goes to the top of that same window. It's easy to detect with the geo nodes that this is the front window, and now everything is placed here on that data. And so now if I view just the output of this, there's already now kind of a start of a vehicle here, kind of looking pretty funny. Now just put some time into kind of redefining this mesh and stuff, and then get back with this. Okay, so the wheel was a bit too small, and now it's better. I can just continue with this vehicle and the wheels generator. Get these wheels a little closer. That's why. And just move this whole thing backwards. I need to do the same thing to this guy. Get this probably only need one seat here. Make sure I have this set up. Yeah, it's one. Just the position of this should move to the center too. Okay, it's not very pretty yet. There's this getting there with the exhaust path. And then just move it somewhere around there. And since this is a racing game, you need to have a whole lot of engine in there. Put the grill shape in place. Just move it where the grill needs to be. The output, it will get generated there. Obviously the grill can be tweaked a little. Higher in this case. Let me go with one more over there and get these, this whole line here a bit up. More shape there on the top. Adding one more cut here. Just scale the Y to 0. Or the other move is to just edge slide here all the way there. This guy wants is Y1. Y. Front there. I just probably want more cuts. More edge slide is just slide this as close as possible to still it needs more cuts. It's better to kind of just cut it one more time here and here to actually make it then smaller. Edge sliding these. And then to make this bigger, yeah, we need to just add a couple of slices there too. Yeah, actually, this cut is not needed here. Just dissolve these edges. Dissolve these edges. In fact, it's more about putting more detail in the center there. A bit wider here. This line. now the cutters are now set in a way that they're one size. I need them to be kind of relative to the wheel. Otherwise the cutter will be too big here or too small here. And to change that in the notes. A couple of loops there. Loops all the way up there. This all the way down there. So now it's starting to look like an actual vehicle more. A couple of problems with now that centering and these cutters. Change those next. So back with the, so I just decided to kind of add one more geometry node to these wheels so that it's kind of the most kind of robust way of now generating these. Just add with collider is just a cylinder with that material, so each one of these now has the collider in it, and especially for these cases where you have to first do a bunch of booleans, it makes sense to kind of last add it and not be there for the booleans and stuff. So it really makes sense for it to be a different geometry nodes than the actual wheel generator, and not a big deal to add one to each one of these 6 now. And then for the output guy here, so I changed this now that if there's only one seat in the row, it will center here, and the other objects are kind of relative to that. And so now it has the colliders in place, and that's centered. Kind of just show about kind of the moves needed to this ornament, for example, it's just an object here, and I can kind of dynamically move it now, and it will cut itself. Depth. One wants to be in a position where it doesn't cause that kind of bad artifact there. Still kind of that angle is kind of nasty, should be kind of like a flat area, maybe work on that later, or maybe add it here on the grill instead. Door handles, they're in the mirrored, and the idea with the mirrored and non-mirrored is like this, all these ones in the mirrored collection will go first into this kind of mirrored objects, and then that has a mirror, and then since this whole collection will get added, it doesn't really matter where that stuff comes from, just as long as it's then in this collection. So it's kind of like juggling with these objects in these collections is what makes it all kind of fast, possible to work on it, like with this speed. So it's like technically almost real time here. You see the changes kind of happening where that handle should be. Maybe a lot further to the front first of all. Around there, maybe wants to be a little bit more flat in that area. So I just these. flatter. Seems like you can actually get in through there. And then just set the material of parts that I want to be door. The door material. The door mirrored actually in this case because I want it to be on both sides. Or do I? Maybe there's only one door on. I'll start with door mirrored. Since the handle is on both sides, there's a door now on both sides. Probably only have a door on one side of these things. In fact, if we do that setup, it would be simply changing this into door. So now the door gets only generated on one side, and the handle here just moved straight to the objects. Then it only gets generated on this one side and not on the mirrored side. And still the case of that. That guy wants to be there, that guy. Keep screwing up with the selections and stuff. Said here, like after each and every one little move it. Do this itself. So now there's like technically there's a door there. Maybe think about the bottom stuff. Just select one of the bottom guys. Probably want first to cut. I'm gonna make one more cut there, one more loop, so it's more flatter. And then just select one of these, and then I can just go select similar and coplanar. So that's the whole bottom. And then actually one more. Now there's this special case in these that if I set this now to black plastic and assign it, you can see it as black plastic, it's kind of clear that the bottom is like that. It then finally gets just an edge around that, and it actually uses the same material. So it technically kind of creates bumpers that are kind of isolated objects. Like, at least it looks like that from the side. So it's starting to look like more intact of a vehicle now, since it has those bumpers and it has now that. And that's pretty much it for like generating the vehicle. And like, of course more detail and stuff can be added then later. And this all this very simple mesh. Just work on moving this front window a bit forward here. Give it kind of like look like that more. And that's starting to look more finished vehicle like this. This whole something's kind of a bit funny still. Okay. Make it better would be like put the same at the back first. It's over here, this and this. Keep this back edge as flat as possible. Just go size y0 and then gy0. And pretty much this guy I can just edge slide to the edge and then back, so I can get it like more aligned. Well, kind of so on and so on. And that made it a bit too fat, in fact. This guy. But now, as you can see, it's kind of all about just editing this simple mesh, and everything kind of adapts really nicely to that. Just as long as you don't have them in the wrong place. And make these wheels probably a little less far apart. Wheel size. Like that, and then this a bit to the forward. Perhaps do something with the exhaust path here. Exhaust path. Forward. And it starts to form a simple enough. I can't really get in there with the wheel being there. Forward first. Well, kind of got lost there. And since the box is now overlapping the wrong place here, copy bounce. There. So anyway, fiddling with this can take 4 hours and hours to get it back kind of where you wanted it to be. Anyway, there's the whole idea of this vehicle generation kind of node system, and get back later. So, as a conclusion, I just want to add that vehicle now part of this collection might go around here. GX -5, -5, no, GX +10, and then that is now the output of output 5. And now we have this QLO tractor thingy. Perhaps a lot of scale at the moment. So you can see the dimensions of that and all that better. Working at it like an ATV, like a, it's a minibus, like a bigger bus. It's like a whole list of vehicles. Anyway, that's it for the kind of tractor generation of the vehicle generator.